Welcome to another episode of the Modern Facilities Management Podcast, brought to you by Stratum. I'm your host, Griffin Hamilton. This is the show where I interview industry experts who share their stories, strategies, and insights into modern-day facilities management. From hospitality to commercial real estate and everything in between, we'll learn what it really takes to succeed as a facilities manager. Welcome to another episode of the Modern Facilities Management Podcast. Today's guest, it's been a long time coming, but Sherry Perkins, the president of the San Diego Chapter with IFMA. Sherry, how you doing?
I'm doing just great. Nice and sunny in San Diego.
You know what? I think everyone here is going to be jealous as they're listening, unless they're behind and catching up while it's summertime. But right now here in Atlanta, it's about 30 degrees, and I'm not excited to take my dog out here after this conversation. So don't rub it in too much.
Well, my dog is enjoying a very beautiful 73 degrees.
Well, I think we're all quite jealous of that. But, well, I know we've gone back and forth for what seems like months now, trying to lock down some time and making sure our tech platform is going to work. So I'm excited to have you on finally and really diving into kind of what you're doing with IFMA and really the impact that IFMA has had on a phrase that you brought to my attention here a couple weeks back, but the Marines of the built environment. And before we dive into all of that, I want to give you an opportunity to kind of introduce yourself and how you got into facilities and your involvement with IFMA.
Okay, well, many years ago, I was in the accounting department. I hated it, but that's a good reason to change careers. Please try not to spit coffee while I talk.
You caught me right when I was taking a sip there.
So I had been transferred over to reception for modified work for an injury that I had, which happened to report to facilities. Facilities is a wonderful position to be in because facilities, you don't do the same thing every day. It's different. Everything is an adventure. Everything has an immediate effect on the entire employee group that you have or in the building. And so you feel very rewarded and you can feel like a hero sometimes, and other times you feel like the enemy. But, you have immediate effect on people, and you could, if you're a nurturing type person, you take care of people, and that's really something. If you love architecture, you could take care of the building. One time I was talking to a college group, and I said, what is the difference between Castle Ruin in Scotland and the Windsor Castle? And the difference is a facility manager. So we can make that building that an architect dreamed up, that a builder spent so much time building, and we take that dream and we extend it for a full lifetime and even beyond. I mean, think about all the historical buildings that we have that we had to lovingly take care of. That's where the facility manager comes in, is taking care of that property, that building. And if you love something like that, putting on your little fingerprint onto history, then facility management is a great opportunity for you.
Yeah, and that's, I think you're the first person who's had that journey into facilities management. There's not too many people that get into it at this point very intentionally, but you're the first that I've heard that background, so kudos there. But I guess taking a different direction, going from you getting into the industry and just getting your feet wet there, and then now you've made it all the way to being the president of the San Diego chapter with IFMA. How did you get involved? Where did that start? And just tell me a little bit more about that.
Okay, well, you should know already I'm a stubborn little girl. No, I'm a stubborn person. There is a phrase that many people say around me is, don't tell her no. If you tell me no, I will prove that it can be done anyway, even if you say no. So I had asked a career advice from a facility manager who was well seasoned and everything, and they told me that I would never make it in facilities. It's not for women, and he would never hire a woman. So basically, he told me no. So
you're saying that in a polite way. That's
I am. So he turned away and started walking away, and I said, "Watch me." So I want to thank him for encouraging me like that, because now I am a facility manager for two 6-story buildings of a company that has many different locations. I also am president of IFMA, and I've accomplished my FMP, which is Facility Management Professional, my CFM, which is a Certified Facility Professional, CFM, Certified Facility Manager, and I'm going for another one because he told me I couldn't do it. So like I said, I'm a little stubborn.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And that's something where I don't know if that's an individual you've come across since your success and your continued success, but I would be one that would be very much interested in having that type of conversation many years later after hearing that.
Well, I use it as a fuel to keep me going. So again, I truly do appreciate him for saying that to me, because I didn't take it in the negative. I took that as inspiration to prove something. And I was able to do that. So I really appreciate him, and I thank him for doing that. He's retired now, so I can no longer talk to him.
That's incredible. So what I teased at the beginning, a few areas, but that we'll dive into, but really that line that I'm going to go back to with IFMA preparing facilities managers to be the Marines of the built environment. And that stands out, has stuck with me for quite some time. And so I want to throw it over to you to elaborate what you really mean by that. What does it mean for facilities managers to be the Marines of the built environment?
The Marines have a slogan that says, "We adapt, we adjust, we overcome." And if that doesn't sound like facilities management, I don't know what does. Every time you have a new leader come into business, they have their own ideas how the business should be, and they may want to rearrange that whole building. I was in a business where they did that 11 times. I had to rearrange that entire building 11 times. And I had said, the minute they said, I want to change everything, I'm like, okay, let's go. I'm ready. But more in the last couple of years with COVID is that we've had to adapt, adjust, and overcome. It changed everything, the way we did things. It changed the way that we did things normally to something that we had to pivot constantly. What does the health order say now? So now what do we have to set up? What does the health order say now? What did CDC say? Now with all of these mandates, what do we do now? And the C-suite is leaning on the facility manager to lead that charge. Or I should say they're leaning on HR, who leans on the facility manager to lead that charge. So we come in, we know our resources. Now, that's the most important thing I tell my team at work, is that know what your resources are so that you can plan, and you can always have a plan B, a plan C, a plan D, because you always have to adjust. Right when they have you going down one path, they change their mind, and you have to pivot and leave the rest of that behind and just be able to take on that new path. That's what facility management does. The only thing that stays consistent is our preventive maintenance. What we have to do to keep that building running.
Yep, and that's in the ideal scenario, right? I mean, we've had many episodes talking about the importance of preventative maintenance, and so the one variable that you can control is one of those things that kind of goes to the wayside in a lot of situations. So, but you're exactly right. I mean, you just have to be on your toes at all times, being able to pivot, to adapt. And how can someone who is, maybe listening, that maybe taking a step back and say, okay, well, this is not what I expected in facilities management. I didn't really think about having to go all the way through plan C and plan D. How does one, take that first step and prepare for that?
Again, know your resources. If they say they want you to do a certain thing, you know what you need to do that certain thing. What if one part of that plan doesn't work? What if something doesn't show up? What if a vendor cannot perform the duty he performed? Do you have a backup plan? Because they don't care that vendor can't do it in the C-suite. What they care about is you get it done. The only way for you to get it done is if you have contingency plans. Even in construction, there's a contingency cost, right? There's contingency plans. You do that as a facility manager too. You have your contingency plans. So no matter what, you're ready to go. You're ready to move. And the business doesn't stop. It relies on us to keep things going behind the scenes so the business can move forward.
Yeah, and as far as knowing your resources, right? I mean, even that you could dive in deeper and just say, okay, well, what exactly do you mean by that? What kind of resource? You alluded to vendors. I'm sure you're referring to materials, but I guess what would that actual first step be beyond, okay, yes, I want to know my resources. What does that mean I could do?
Okay, so say for example, I had a move that I had to do in another state. I don't know anyone in another state. I don't know any movers. I don't know any cubicle people. I don't know anything. Well, I reached out to the IFMA chapters in those states and I said, I need these vendors. So that was one of my resources. And they gave me a list of vendors that had been vetted by already vetted by facility managers. So I didn't have to do so much working and hoping they're the right people. They have been vetted. So that was one of my resources, a constant resource, which is IFMA, having those chapters to go to. You have that. Then for me, I always have 2 vendors ready to go for anything that I do, or a national vendor that I can use at any location that we have. Knowing those resources, knowing that you have that national vendor so that if it's needed, you can pull on that. Knowing that you have those chapters to give you good feed of vendors or things like that, you can pull on that. If you can't get these chairs, what's your other choice of chair? Well, it's this one here. Always having that backup plan in case something's not available. Did that answer?
Yeah, no, that was more than I was expecting. I love that. And something to elaborate on there is the IFMA, reliance on IFMA and that partnership, because a lot of people look at it on a surface level and just, oh, it's a networking organization. I could go and get more certifications, or there's resources to, learn this, that, and the other. But you bring up a really good point on the partnerships that you could form beyond just the networking component. And so talk to me there. What has been those relationships like throughout your career with IFMA or through IFMA, and how that's impacted you?
Well, I had a site in Michigan that needed to move. We go back to that story. I called the Michigan chapter. They gave me vendors. I had to move in Arizona. I called the Arizona chapter. They had vendors. Using IFMA for anything. I have a question. I don't know how to do something. What do you guys recommend? IFMA Wire. You can go there. You can go. IFMA Engage is my favorite because you can put a question in there and everyone answers you. Even vendors who say, give us a chance because this is how you do it. You have that resource. And I totally forgot what the question was. Did I answer it? No.
You did. You certainly touched on it. But as far as just how it's impacted you and those relationships, whenever you do get stuck, because we could all have these different plans, backup plans, and
right.
Knowing our resources, as you mentioned. But there's always going to be times where you need to rely on others, and I think that's where you're going with that, as far as where
Yes.
an IFMA type organization could come into play, and how that's how you've utilized those resources.
Right, is through the recommendations of other facility managers, other vendors, because these associate members come in, and yes, they're all trying to meet facility managers because they need to make sales, they need to do all this stuff, but we ask them to create relationships. So when you start trusting them, you follow them forever, basically. You follow them from company to company, but then you trust what they tell you. You trust their word. I had a situation where I needed carpets cleaned because my brand new carpet was melting in the middle from all the foot traffic. But my regular carpet cleaning company was not doing the job. I called an IFMA member who was an associate who sold carpet. And he said, what you need is this company, because this company does wonderful things with carpet. They understand it down to the fiber. And he was correct. I called them. They immediately called me back. And my carpets looked brand new once they were done. And I knew that my other carpet cleaning company, which didn't come from IFMA, was doing a bad job because the fire riser exploded because someone forgot to put the cap back on. And it flooded my office area, and I was sitting in a bubble bath.
Oh, God.
So I kind of had a clue that, this company wasn't doing too well, and I needed to look elsewhere.
I think that's a very clear hint, if you will, at the need to go find someone else there.
Yes.
That's incredible. I'm sure you didn't think it was incredible in the moment, but at least you could look back on it and chuckle a little bit. You learn from it. That's what we're doing here. We're making mistakes and we're failing, and we are learning from it so we don't make that failure once again.
Exactly. Well, as a mentor friend of mine says, we fail forward. Okay, we made a mistake. What did we learn? Okay, let's move on.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I just about everyone in my own organization, I say it to them blue in the face, but it's, what did we fail today? We have failure Fridays, and it's encouraging, taking that risk and failing. As long as we're learning from it, then that's the key part there. So I guess going back to making these adjustments and having the ability to pivot, as you mentioned, COVID has had, you alluded to the different, I guess the regulations that have been brought up and have changed here over the last, it's hard to believe, 24 months. What has that been like? How have you adjusted, and how are you looking as you continue to look ahead at something that hasn't, had an indication of stopping anytime soon? If anything, it's getting more and more complicated. But how are you looking to make these adjustments and preparing for this?
When everything first started, everyone was into hand sanitizer and basically napalming their entire building so that they could be germ free. What I did is I looked at the CDC and it said soap and water. And so I said, let's take this simply good sense, common sense. So I loaded up on soap and water and as much hand sanitizer as I could. And this is before the famous March 16th, hey, everyone has to go home. This is when I loaded up on hand sanitizer. Let me back up and say that, because I had an inkling when I heard rumors of, hey, this is a pandemic or a possible pandemic. I said, well, we're in the flu season anyway. Let's go ahead and stock up. So I took that intuition that I had and I stocked up, and the next day I know everything sold out. But I went to that soap and water, made it simple. So if I can't get hand sanitizer, what else can I do? Made sure that I educated them that frequent hand washing and the 6 foot distance will be fine. Well, then they're like, okay, well, we need the building to be 6 foot from everybody everywhere. Okay, what does that mean to you? We want people in every other cubicle, not next to each other in cubicles. Okay, now I got to redo the whole floor plan. Okay, so I get that all together and I turn that in. This is what it looks like. Okay, now instead of that, we're going to do this. Okay, so I get that together. Here you go. This is what it looks like. Okay, instead of that, we want to do this. Okay, so I get that together and turn that in. Okay, that first plan we had? Yes, here it is right here. You got to be able to keep turning and turning and turning and give them what they want, because they believe they are leading the fight, and that's fine. But you're the boots on the ground, and you have to keep it going. And so that's where you have to pivot a lot, whatever they feel is it. And when the CDC goes from, oh, you have to wear a cloth mask. Okay, we got a cloth mask. Oh, no, it's got to go over to N95. Okay, we got to get that too. Oh, no, now it's back to surgical mask. Okay, I have 3 kinds of masks. Now I'm ready. I've got everything. So a lot of pivoting that you have to do in a situation like this is constantly fluid. So you have to be ready for anything. You have to have your resources. My source here can get me this. My source there can get me that. We would rely on our janitorial company to get us hand sanitizer because it wasn't available to anyone but janitorial companies. We went to the breweries to get hand sanitizer because they stopped making alcohol and started making hand sanitizer due to the shortage. Funny story about that is the ones that we got smelled like tequila. And so I brought up to HR, this could be a concern because people could be pulled over on their way home by the police, and they had to explain that, no, officer, I am not drunk. It is my hand sanitizer. So I still have a cabinet full of tequila hand sanitizer in case anyone is interested.
I'll put your email in the show notes. So if
there
anyone...
you go. So with the pandemic, there's a lot of pivoting, even now. They say, oh, you need a health screener. It's required. Okay, so you got to find one that's available that meets all the requirements. You got to put up all the documents for safe reopening. You got to get all that ready. Pivot again. Oh, you don't need that. Now you need this. Okay, I got to find one and get that ready. Let's get the contracts. There's so much. So you're always pivoting, always pivoting. And then if they say, everyone's going home, no one's coming in. Okay. So here, it's that whole thing. That's why resources are so important. That's how COVID has impacted us, has made us look at our resources even more closely. If you have a business continuity plan, you always have to have a backup. Well, I took that to heart. So everything, I have a backup for every vendor. I have a backup in every project so that no matter what, I have an option.
Yeah. And I guess looking ahead now, because you mentioned your intuition whenever you loaded up on hand sanitizer prior to everyone else, being reactive there. What are you looking at moving forward? I mean, do you have another gut feeling that, there's going to be a major change, or is it, cautiously moving forward as is, preparing for worst case scenarios, but, still sticking to the game plan?
Since I've noticed that Israel no longer cares about the mandates, and I heard that there's another country, England is doing the same thing, no longer cares about the mandates. And I said, okay, then how do we propose to stay safe? What if we followed that same thing? We still need to keep my building clean. We still need to keep my people safe. We have put in, within our HVAC system, ionization technology to help knock down the viruses and allergens. That's good. Keep that healthy. We do all high-touch areas 3 times a day. We use hospital-grade disinfectant at night cleaning. We do the electrostatic spray of the Clorox 360 every other week. So each building gets it once a week. We're doing all of that. Plus we are doing the health screening, all of that. If all of the mandates disappeared, I would continue cleaning my building the way we're cleaning it now, for the just in case, for the what if they go back. I'm just going to stay that course until we finally see that it is now a severe cold rather than this virus, that it has become like a severe cold because we are getting herd immunity. I'm just being cautious on the cleaning side so that my company can make any decision that they want to make, and that we're still good in the building. I'm still protecting my people. So that's what I see right now, is that we need to stay diligent on the cleaning side, no matter what's decided politically, medically, all that stuff.
Do you think that is going to be just a new norm for facilities managers moving forward, is keeping this standard of cleaning? Because I'm sure that there's, the cost that is in the back of the mind where it's probably something where it could come front to mind if it does, and knock on wood, very quickly kind of get to that herd mentality, or where it is just a severe cold, where we could be a little bit more lax there. But do you think it's going to be more common for people to maintain this level of cleaning, or do you think we're going to fall back into the way things were?
I really think we are creatures of habit, and I think we're going to fall back to some respect. But for us, in my thinking, is that we have been certified GBAC, and I'm not quite sure what all the acronyms mean. It sounds delicious. No, I'm kidding. GBAC. Please don't spit your coffee out.
This is twice. You've got me twice now.
It's global biorisk something. So that means that if there is an outbreak of any kind of virus, we know how to react. And I think everyone should have that plan of action, so that if they say, we need to cut costs, and can we back up on that cleaning? Okay, let's back up a little at a time till we go to what we feel is good. We'll still keep the ionization technology. We'll probably still keep the once a month 360 to break down any allergens or viruses that might come in. But until it'll be slow coming back, but we'll always have that backup plan ready to go and funded, in my opinion, funded so that you can react if you need to react quickly to keep the employees safe.
Yeah. And with regards to space planning, where do you see that going? Because that is it's very much a hot topic of conversation right now, where, is it a hybrid model? Are people remote? Are we going to have social distancing in the space layout? So what are you guys doing to prepare for that? And what are your thoughts on it moving forward?
It's still really fluid. I have to say that, because there's been, the architect of Googleplex says that we shouldn't be giving so much amenities for the people to come back, because it's not healthy for them. And yet JLL saying, hey, this might be the end of the, with their report, this might be changing the way the cube farm happens and all of this. And, many, many years ago, they had said, oh, no, everything's going to be open cubicles. There's not going to be any more offices. And this was, I don't know, I'd say this was back in the 90s or so. And I said, no, that's going to go back. I didn't know that might actually happen now. I thought, hey, I'm going to get a little turban and be a fortune teller. But as far as right now, everyone has a lot of cubicles because we were just going into the everyone together. We're going to be a lot of collaboration, and the market is flooded with cubicles. People can't get rid of them. They're going to lose their shirts on them. So I think they're going to have to find a way to modify the cubicles so that you can, I don't know, maybe add a few walls, do something that would help their space seem more attractive to those who have to work on site, safe, and yet not risk their investment they've already made. So it's still very, very fluid. Everyone can say, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, and then it doesn't happen. You just have to be ready. Our company right now, the cubicles are not moving. We just paid a lot for them. We just moved 4 buildings into 2 6-story buildings. The investment's there. We got to find a way to work with the investment.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, and it's going to be fascinating to see how each company, because it is going to be case by case basis, right? Where it's not going to be across the board. Where here's the standard, and we're already seeing that with a lot of organizations just going remote or that hybrid. And so it is going to be interesting to see the hot seats, the just who is coming in, what hours, what are core hours anymore, and just kind of the changes that the fallout that we're going to see from that standpoint.
It's very true. We are hybrid right now. There are very few people that come in unless it's essential. I do find that people do want to come back. Many of them do. And there's some that are very happy at home. My team has been on site since the beginning. They would love to be at home for a while, like everyone else was. But it will be office by office. What is best for your group? I don't think anyone can put out a cookie cutter and say, this is how it should be.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and that kind of goes back to that theme of being able to adapt and adjust and pivot at a moment's notice.
Yes, exactly.
Well, Sherry, I certainly appreciate you coming on, and I had one last question for you before we hit the stop button here, but I asked this to everybody, and you kind of gave me an answer, so I'm going to look for a more positive answer from you on this one. But and you'll get what I mean after I ask it, but who or what had the biggest impact on your career? So we can't go back to that guy who was nasty to you and you, in spite of him, went out and performed at the level that you have throughout your career. So it's going to be more positive.
Wow, but there's so many because I look at each person and I don't put all the weight on one person because they're human, but I take the best attributes of the many different people I've seen. There is one very professional and tough, high-powered woman named Sarah Suter that I look to for being able to handle tough decisions and the professional way of acting. There's another Lisa Chappell who made it all the way up to VP of facilities, and she's a woman. And so I thought, okay, and she's got a great professionalism to her, so I look to her too. So the biggest impact on my career, I have to say, is many people. So I'm going to name those two.
Love that. Yep. And it doesn't, there is no wrong answer. I mean, we all get from point A to point B in a very, in our own unique ways, and we get impacted by the people we meet along the journey. So doesn't have to be one, doesn't have to be a group, and it could just be, your own ambitions there. But I absolutely love hearing that, and just the amount of people that have had an impact on you and your career is incredible. And again, that goes back into as well the importance of networking and getting involved in an organization like IFMA as well. So absolutely love hearing that, and I will absolutely love to have you on the show again, and I'm looking forward to seeing you here at the IFMA, hopefully in Austin, event for Facility Fusion. But once again, Sherry, certainly appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me. I can't wait to have you on IG Live in a couple weeks.
Absolutely, and I'll have that linked to the show notes as well. But Sherry, enjoy your evening, and we'll be talking soon.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Modern Facilities Management Podcast. Make sure to subscribe for future episodes and visit our website, stratumcommunity.com, for more facilities management content.